The billionaire watched in disgust as the woman sold her teenage stepdaughter to him $4.5000, believing he was just another homeless man looking to exploit a vulnerable girl. The terrified young woman in the turquoise graduation dress trembled against the brick wall, her eyes locked on the grimy pavement, refusing to meet the gaze of the man who now supposedly owned her. Her stepmother had already turned away, counting bills with eager fingers, a half-smile playing across her lips. What she couldn't see was how the homeless man's dirt-streaked face concealed years of calculated rage, or how his tattered coat hid a satellite phone connecting him to a security team poised to strike. Alexander Blackwood had built an empire from nothing, but tonight, he was nothing but a shadow with a purpose. "She's your problem now," the stepmother called over her shoulder. "No funds." Hours later, as Alexander watched the rescued girl sleeping in his penthouse safe haven, something caught his attention. A silver locket clutched in her hand, identical to the one he'd carried for 20 years. Inside, half a photograph that completed his own torn image. Have you ever felt the universe aligned in ways that defy explanation? That moment when coincidence feels too perfect to be random? Click subscribe now and join me on a journey where fate rewrites the rules of chance, where a rescue mission becomes a reunion 2 decades in the making. Let me show you where it all began. Alexander Blackwood lived 2 lives with surgical precision. In boardrooms, he commanded attention with custom Italian suits and decisions that move markets. The business press called him ruthless, brilliant, untouchable. 51 weeks each year they were right. But during that 52nd week, Alexander disappeared. His executive team distributed prepared statements about remote meditation retreats or technology detox vacations. The truth would have collapsed stock prices. Their CEO was currently huddled in a urine-soaked doorway, beard growing patchy, designer watch traded for a military timepiece, eyes tracking every movement at Cornerstone Adoptions across the street. "Morning, Alex," called a woman pushing a shopping cart. "Cold one today." "Morning, Gloria," he nodded, accepting the coffee she offered. Unlike his executives, the street community knew him well, just not who he really was. For 6 days, he documented everything. Staff arriving early, leaving late. Luxury cars collecting well-dressed couples through the front entrance. Occasional teenage girls escorted through the back. His miniature cameras captured license plates, faces, patterns that normal observers might miss. "They're moving another one tonight," Gloria whispered. Heard the receptionist on her phone when I was digging through their trash. Something about a fresh package at 9. Alexander slipped her several folded bills. "Thank you. Stay clear tonight." As darkness fell, he positioned himself with clear sight lines to both entrances. Uncle Raymond's voice echoed in his memory. "Your parents died because they discovered something powerful people wanted hidden. Whatever you become, remember why they fought." He'd been 4 when the accident happened. 20 years of nightmares had polished those fragments to painful clarity. His mother's panicked voice, the silver locket pressed into his palm, the promise to find his baby sister, headlights approaching too fast, then water everywhere. His phone vibrated. A message from his team tracking a black sedan approaching Cornerstone. When it stopped, Alexander adjusted his position, camera ready. The back door swung open. A woman emerged, yanking a girl in a bright turquoise dress behind her. The girl stumbled, nearly falling to her knees. Something in her defeated posture tightened Alexander's chest. This wasn't just another case to document. Tonight, he would break protocol. Tonight, he would intervene. 12 hours earlier, Zara Mills had stood on stage, valedictorian sash gleaming against her turquoise graduation gown. Her speech praised perseverance against obstacles. Words her classmates interpreted as inspirational metaphors rather than her daily reality. No one knew she'd written it by flashlight after Veronica cut power to her bedroom. No one saw the bruises her long sleeves concealed. No one understood that her perfect GPA wasn't ambition. It was escape. With highest honors, Zara Mills, the principal announced. The audience applauded. One seat remained conspicuously empty. the one where a parent should have sat, beaming with pride. Dr. James Mills would have been there. For 14 years, her adoptive father had attended every school event, science fair, and piano recital. His sudden heart attack 3 years ago had left Zara alone with Veronica, the stepmother who'd always regarded her as competition for attention and resources. Very touching speech, Veronica commented afterward, checking her watch impatiently. We need to go. My friends are celebrating at. Now, Zara, we have an appointment. In the car, Zara clutched her acceptance letter to NYU. Full scholarship, housing included. 3 months until freedom. She'd survived this long. She could manage a few more weeks. At home, Veronica pointed toward Zara's room. Change into something presentable. We're meeting someone important. Who? Why today? Someone who's going to solve both our problems. Veronica's smile turned cold. You want independence? I'm arranging exactly that. Upstairs, Zara changed into her best dress, the turquoise one her father had given her for her 15th birthday. From her hiding spot beneath a floorboard, she retrieved the silver locket containing the only photo she had of her birth parents. A half-torn image of a couple holding a baby boy, their faces partially visible. Whatever had happened to her biological family remained a mystery Dr. Mills had promised to help her solve when she turned 18. That day had come and gone, with only Veronica's dismissive, "Those people didn't want you then, they won't want you now." As evening approached, Veronica grew increasingly agitated, checking her phone repeatedly. When it finally rang, her expression darkened further. What do you mean he's not coming? The money already spent. She paced, listening. Fine, I'll find another buyer tonight. Buyer? The word froze Zara's blood. Get in the car, Veronica demanded, grabbing her purse. Change of plans. As they drove downtown, Zara realized with mounting horror that her independence was being sold to the highest bidder. Her graduation day, her triumph against all odds, was transforming into a nightmare beyond imagination. Alexander monitored Cornerstone adoptions with the patience of a man who'd learned that timing reveals what scrutiny cannot. From his vantage point between two dumpsters, he documented each arrival and departure, noting patterns invisible to casual observers. Monday, 4 couples entered through the front. 2 left with infant carriers. Tuesday, the director met with men whose vehicles bore diplomatic plates. Wednesday, late-night deliveries of furniture, odd for an adoption agency. Thursday, 3 teenage girls escorted through the back entrance. None emerged. By Friday, he'd identified key players. Eleanor Rhodes, the polished director whose smile never reached her eyes. Marcus Bellamy, head of security, with military posture and wandering hands. And the newest person of interest, Veronica Mills, administrative assistant whose nervous efficiency suggested someone with compromised ethics. They're running some kind of pipeline, Alexander murmured into his recorder. Question is, where are these girls going? A text illuminated his phone. Black sedan approaching from east. Female driver, possible minor passenger. Alexander adjusted his position as the vehicle pulled into the alley behind Cornerstone. His camera whirred silently, capturing license plates, driver's face, timestamp. The back door opened. Out stepped Veronica Mills, yanking a young woman behind her, tall, slender, with dark hair cascading over a turquoise dress that seemed jarringly formal for the setting. The girl's body language communicated everything. Shoulders curved inward, steps reluctant, eyes downcast. Move faster, Veronica hissed, grip tightening on the girl's arm. Through his zoom lens, Alexander observed details. Graduation tassel dangling from the girl's purse. Red marks forming where Veronica's fingers dug into skin, the glint of a chain disappearing into the neckline of her dress. Inside Cornerstone, lights flicked on in a back office. Eleanor Rhodes appeared at the window, phone pressed to her ear, expression tightening at whatever she heard. Alexander's earpiece crackled. Boss, Bellamy's not on site. Rhodes seems agitated. Something's off protocol. Stay positioned, Alexander whispered. I'm maintaining visuals. Minutes passed. The office door flew open. Rhodes emerged, gesturing angrily at Veronica, who shook her head repeatedly. The girl stood between them, swaying slightly like a flower in crosswinds. Deals canceled. Alexander's audio equipment captured Rhodes saying, "Take her back." Our client pulled out. "I can't take her back," Veronica replied, voice rising. "The money already spent. Find another buyer." "Not how this works. We need proper vetting for transfers." "Then I'll find someone myself." Rhodes grabbed Veronica's arm. "You do that, you're on your own. We won't be connected to whatever happens." As the women argued, the girl's gaze lifted briefly, scanning the alley, and for a moment, Alexander felt her eyes pass over his hiding spot. What he saw wasn't just fear, it was resignation. The look of someone who'd given up expecting rescue. His mission had always been intelligence gathering, not intervention. Document, report, enable prosecutions. Never break cover. But something about this girl's defeated expression struck a chord deeper than protocol. Veronica stormed back to her car, Rhodes retreating inside. Instead of forcing the girl into the vehicle, Veronica stood scanning the surrounding area, desperation evident in her frantic movements. Then her eyes settled on Alexander's huddled form. "Hey, you, homeless guy." Alexander maintained his cover, shifting uncomfortably as if half asleep, bleary eyes blinking up at the woman approaching him. Veronica Mills looked different up close. Makeup expensive but applied hastily, designer clothes that couldn't quite hide nervous sweat stains, eyes darting between Alexander and the girl in the turquoise dress who remained rooted near the car. "How much money do you have?" Veronica demanded. Alexander coughed, playing confused. "Excuse me, cash. How much cash do you have right now?" Her voice dropped lower. "I've got something valuable to offer." Alexander's training had prepared him for many scenarios. This wasn't one of them. He'd anticipated documenting transactions, not becoming part of one, especially not with a terrified young woman as the commodity. He feigned interest mixed with caution. "Depends what you're selling." Veronica grabbed the girl's arm, pulling her forward like merchandise on display. "My stepdaughter, 17, healthy, educated. Good for whatever you need help with." The girl's eyes widened in horror, tears forming but not falling, body trembling despite her attempt to remain composed. Alexander noted the details automatically. Approximately 5 feet 7 inches, 120 pounds, no visible injuries beyond the fresh marks on her arm, expensive dress contrasting with worn shoes, silver chain around her neck. "She's a person, not property," Alexander mumbled, maintaining his homeless persona while buying time to assess options. "Look," Veronica hissed, "I don't care about your moral stance. I need cash tonight. She needs somewhere to go. Simple transaction. How much have you got?" Alexander made a show of reluctance, digging into his tattered coat's inside pocket, where he kept his emergency funds. He pulled out a wad of bills, watching Veronica's eyes widen at the unexpected amount. "Why is a homeless guy carrying thousands?" she asked, suspicion momentarily overriding desperation. "Not your business," he growled. "Saved for years. My security." Veronica hesitated only briefly before calculation won. 5,000 and she's yours. No questions asked. The girl finally spoke, voice barely audible. "Veronica, please." "Shut up." Veronica snapped. "You wanted independence. Here's your chance." Alexander met the girl's eyes directly for the first time. What he saw wasn't just fear, there was intelligence there, assessment. She was evaluating him, looking for any sign he might be less dangerous than her current situation. He gave an almost imperceptible nod, hoping she'd understand he meant no harm. 5,000, he agreed, counting out bills with deliberately unsteady hands. Veronica snatched the money, quickly flipping through it. "She's your problem now. No refunds." Without another word, without a single glance at the girl she'd raised, Veronica strode to her car and drove away, tires squealing against pavement. Alexander and the girl stood facing each other in the alley shadows. He saw her throat work as she swallowed hard, hands clenched at her sides, body poised between fight and flight. "My name is Alexander Blackwood," he said quietly, dropping the homeless effect. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm here to help. Confusion crossed her face. You're not homeless? No, I'm the CEO of Blackwood Technologies. I've been investigating cornerstone adoptions for human trafficking. He slowly reached for his satellite phone. If you'll trust me, I can get you somewhere safe. Her eyes narrowed, suspicion replacing fear. Why should I believe anything right now? Fair question. Alexander pressed a button on his phone. Within seconds, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled into the alley, two professionally dressed security personnel emerging. Mr. Blackwood, one nodded. Extraction successful? The girl's eyes darted between them, realization dawning. This was a setup? Not exactly, Alexander replied. I was monitoring Cornerstone, not expecting your stepmother to approach me directly. But yes, my team and I work to expose trafficking networks. He gestured toward the SUV. You have two choices. Come with us to a secure location where we can help you properly, or we can take you anywhere else you feel safe. Either way, you're free. Your stepmother's actions tonight were illegal, and you're under no obligation to anyone. She hesitated, hand unconsciously rising to touch something beneath her dress, the chain he'd noticed earlier. What's your name? Alexander asked gently. Zara, she whispered. Zara Mills. Something about the name resonated strangely in Alexander's mind, like an echo from somewhere distant. Well, Zara Mills, he said, extending his hand without touching her. Would you like to leave this place? After a moment that stretched between them like years, she nodded once. As they walked toward the vehicle, neither could have imagined how their lives had already been connected long before this night, or how the lockets they each carried would soon reveal a truth buried for 20 years. This isn't exactly what I pictured for a rescue operation, Zara murmured, fingers tracing the leather interior of the SUV as it glided through Manhattan streets. Her voice carried forced calm, but Alexander noted her vigilance, cataloging exits, assessing distances, watching his security team through reflected windows. Most people expect white vans with rescue painted on the side, Alexander replied, maintaining careful distance in the spacious vehicle. Unfortunately, that would rather defeat the purpose. A ghost of a smile touched her lips before vanishing. Progress. So you're not actually homeless, she said, studying his appearance. The authentic dirt, calculated stubble, expertly applied scars. Only 2 weeks a year. Alexander began removing his disguise, wiping away grime with specialized cloth. The next 50 weeks, I will run Blackwood Technologies, the AI security company. Genuine surprise crossed her face. You're that Alexander Blackwood? Guilty. He revealed his true appearance. Sharp blue eyes, strong jawline, features that graced business magazines monthly. Though I'd appreciate discretion about my extracurricular activities. Why would a billionaire spend 2 weeks living on the streets? Seems unnecessarily dramatic. Her tone suggested she was testing him, looking for inconsistencies. Alexander considered his answer carefully. New victims typically received sanitized explanations, not personal truths. But something about Zara's direct gaze demanded honesty. 20 years ago, my parents died under suspicious circumstances involving a corrupt adoption system. I was 4. My sister, he paused, unexpected emotions surfacing. My baby sister was never found. Zara's expression softened fractionally. So this is personal. Everything worthwhile is. He gestured toward the window as they approached a luxury high-rise. We're arriving at what my team calls Haven 6. It's one of several properties we maintain for trafficking survivors. Medical staff, counselors, security, everything needed while people rebuild their lives. As the elevator ascended to the penthouse, Alexander watched Zara's reflection in the polished doors. Her posture remained alert, but exhaustion shadowed her eyes. The turquoise dress, clearly significant enough that she'd worn it to whatever fate awaited, now seemed to weigh on her shoulders. You're safe here, he said quietly as the doors opened to reveal a spacious apartment with panoramic city views. No one enters without clearance, including me after tonight. A professional woman in her 50s approached with a warm smile. Welcome, Zara. I'm Dr. Chen, resident coordinator. We're glad you're here. Alexander stepped back. Dr. Chun will explain everything. My team will ensure your stepmother faces consequences, and will secure your personal documents. Your future choices remain entirely yours.
Zara turned to him, questions battling with fatigue. Why help strangers this way? What do you gain? Justice isn't profitable, he answered simply, but it's necessary. He moved toward the elevator, then paused. One question, if you're willing. The necklace you're wearing. May I ask what it is? Zara's hand instinctively covered the spot where the chain disappeared beneath her dress. Just a locket, from before I was adopted. What? Professional curiosity, he lied smoothly. Rest well, Zara Mills. Tomorrow will be easier. In the descending elevator, Alexander's composed facade cracked. He pulled out his wallet, extracting a worn photograph fragment. A couple holding a baby girl, torn jaggedly down the middle. Run complete background, he instructed his security chief via earpiece. Zara Mills, priority level maximum. Focus on adoption records, specifically 17 years ago. The coincidence seemed impossible. A random intervention revealing the very person he'd searched for across 2 decades? Life had taught Alexander that coincidences often concealed design. By morning, he would know if the girl he'd rescued was merely another victim needing help, or the missing piece of his shattered family. The digital clock read 3:17 a.m. when Alexander's secure phone vibrated with preliminary findings on Zara Mills. Sleep had proven impossible anyway. His mind kept returning to the silver chain around her neck, the familiar way she carried herself, eyes that somehow reflected his own. Report, he answered, voice low in his private office overlooking the city's glittering expanse. Sir, we've located adoption records, his head researcher replied. Zara Mills was adopted 17 years ago by Dr. James Mills, cardiothoracic surgeon at Manhattan Memorial. Closed adoption through Bright Futures Agency. Alexander straightened. Bright Futures closed 12 years ago following fraud allegations. Correct. Their records were supposedly transferred to state archives, but we're finding significant gaps. Dr. Mills attempted to access the original birth certificate multiple times before his death 3 years ago. And the stepmother? Veronica Carson Mills married Dr. Mills when Zara was 10. Following his death, she systematically liquidated most assets despite provisions in his will designating funds for Zara's education. She began working at Cornerstone Adoptions approximately 18 months ago. Alexander's fingers tapped rhythmically against his desk. Any connection between Bright Futures and Cornerstone? 3 former employees transitioned between organizations, including Eleanor Rhodes. Pieces began aligning in Alexander's mind. Not coincidence, but connection. His parents had been investigating adoption fraud before their deaths. Now, 2 decades later, the same players emerged in Zara's story. Sir, the researcher continued, hesitation evident. There's something else. Facial recognition analysis comparing your childhood photos with Zara's graduation pictures shows a 89.7% probability of genetic relationship. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Alexander had pursued many false leads over the years, each disappointment calcifying his expectations. Yet instinct had flagged something familiar the moment he saw Zara in that alley. Keep digging. I want everything, medical records, school reports, anything connected to her adoption, and pull our files on the Blackwood case. Cross-reference names, dates, locations. Sir, should we inform Ms. Mills of these findings? Alexander considered the traumatized young woman sleeping several floors above. Not yet. She's been through enough tonight. Let her rest while we gather concrete evidence. After ending the call, Alexander unlocked his personal safe, removing a small wooden box containing the few items recovered after his parents' accident. His father's watch, his mother's wedding ring, newspaper clippings about the crash, and most precious, the silver locket with half a family photograph. For 20 years, he'd built wealth and influence with a single-minded purpose, finding the truth about that night and the sister he barely remembered. The possibility that she'd literally been sold to him in an alley seemed too profound to be a random chance. Across town, Veronica Mills packed frantically, shoving clothes into suitcases while monitoring flight schedules to non-extradition countries. The $5,000, already earmarked for debts, wouldn't get her far, but distance mattered more than destination now. Her phone rang. Eleanor Rhodes. "You've created quite a mess," Rhodes said without preamble. "Our buyer was very specific about which girl he wanted. You can't just sell merchandise to random people. I was desperate. Your client canceled at the last minute. That's your problem, not ours. But now it's becoming our problem." "Who was he?" "Just some homeless man with cash. Probably saved for years." Rhodes' laugh held no humor. "No homeless person carries $5,000. You were played. We're conducting damage control, but you need to disappear immediately. When they find you, and they will, don't mention us." The line went dead, leaving Veronica with the sickening realization that she'd stepped into something far more dangerous than a simple illegal adoption. She had no way of knowing that Alexander's security team was already outside her building, or that every electronic transaction she attempted would leave digital footprints leading directly back to Cornerstone. By sunrise, multiple lives would change irreversibly, and the secrets buried 20 years ago would finally begin emerging into light. The morning sun found Alexander in his private office, surrounded by holographic displays containing 20 years of investigation. His appearance had transformed overnight. Designer suit replacing rags, clean-shaven jaw set with determination, eyes sharp from both caffeine and purpose. Cornerstone Adoptions operates as the respectable face of a larger network, he explained to his assembled team. They're connected to at least 3 international placement agencies specializing in domestic workers, private companions, and cultural exchange programs, all covers for human trafficking. His security chief nodded. Veronica Mills has been apprehended attempting to board a flight to Caracas. Local authorities are holding her on preliminary charges of human trafficking and child endangerment. And Rhodes? Increased security at Cornerstone. They're purging records as we speak, despite our court order. Alexander turned to his legal counsel. "In short, Judge Harrington understands the urgency. I want those servers seized intact." As his team dispersed to execute their assignments, Alexander remained motionless, staring at a photograph of his parents on a yacht, their last vacation before the accident. His mother's smile, his father's proud stance with an arm around her waist, the carefree joy of a family unaware of coming tragedy. "Sir," his assistant interrupted gently, "Dr. Chun is calling from Haven 6. Ms. Mills is awake and asking questions." Alexander checked his watch. "Tell her I'll be there in 30 minutes. Before leaving, he opened a secure database containing his parents' final research, financial records, adoption agency discrepancies, names of couples who'd paid for expedited services. His father, Thomas Blackwood, had documented everything meticulously, building evidence of criminal conspiracy within adoption agencies. The central discovery: healthy infants being placed with highest bidders rather than approved families, birth records falsified, biological families told their babies had died during delivery. Thomas and Elizabeth Blackwood had been preparing to present evidence to federal authorities when their car plunged off Westchester Bridge. Only Alexander survived, rescued by a passing fisherman. His sister's body was never recovered, officially presumed drowned. Except Alexander had always remembered his mother's final words. "Find her. She's alive." They took her. 20 years pursuing that whispered command had built an empire, developed advanced facial recognition technology, created a foundation reuniting separated families, and ultimately led him to Cornerstone Adoptions and to Zara. He locked the files and headed to the penthouse, mentally preparing for a conversation that might change both their lives forever. Meanwhile, Zara stood by floor-to-ceiling windows, freshly showered, dressed in borrowed clothes, watching Manhattan awaken below. The trauma of the previous night felt simultaneously distant and raw, as though it had happened to someone else, yet left bruises on her soul. Dr. Chun had explained everything: the safe house, the legal support, the resources available for her future. Zara had listened politely while cataloging escape routes, assessing threats, and maintaining walls built through years of survival. "Why would a billionaire personally intervene in my situation?" she had asked. "There must be thousands of trafficking victims. What makes me special?" Dr. Chin's response had been measured. "Alexander has personal reasons for fighting adoption fraud. But regarding your specific case, you need to ask him directly." Now, hearing the elevator doors open, Zara turned to face the man who had purchased her freedom with remarkable timing and resources. The homeless disguise was gone, revealing someone both familiar from business news and strangely connected to her in ways she couldn't articulate. "Good morning," Alexander said simply. "I believe we have much to discuss." They sat in the penthouse's sunlit kitchen, separated by a marble island and decades of divergent experiences. Alexander had insisted on preparing coffee himself, a small gesture to establish normalcy amid extraordinary circumstances. "Your stepmother has been apprehended," he began, sliding a mug toward Zara. "She faces multiple charges. You're legally an adult, but given the circumstances, you'll have protected status while testifying." Zara wrapped her fingers around the warm ceramic, studying him openly. "You're different than yesterday. More formal. Professional habit. Different environments require different approaches. And which version is real? The homeless vigilante or the polished CEO?" Alexander's mouth curved slightly. "Both. Neither. We all were necessary masks." She sipped her coffee, gaze never leaving his face. "You didn't answer my question last night. Why me? Why were you there at that exact moment?" Instead of answering immediately, Alexander placed a small velvet box on the counter between them. "May I see your locket, Zara?" Her hand instinctively rose to her neck, fingers curling protectively around the silver oval beneath her borrowed shirt. "Why?" "Because I believe it might match this." With deliberate movements, Alexander opened the box, revealing a silver locket identical to hers. Aged, scratched in the same places, with the same intricate engraving along its edge. Zara's eyes widened, coffee forgotten. "That's impossible. May I see yours?" "You don't need to remove it." After a moment's hesitation, she withdrew the locket from beneath her shirt, letting it rest against her collarbone. The resemblance was undeniable. Two pieces from the same jeweler, worn by time and handling. "Open it," Alexander suggested quietly. Zara's fingers trembled slightly as she clicked the small clasp. Inside lay half a photograph, a couple holding a baby boy, torn jaggedly down the middle. Without speaking, Alexander opened his locket, revealing its contents. The same couple, holding an infant girl, torn along the same jagged line. When aligned, the halves formed a complete image, a family portrait taken 20 years earlier. Zara's breath caught audibly. "This doesn't make sense." 17 years ago, Alexander began carefully. Dr. James Mills adopted a baby girl through Bright Futures Agency. The biological parents were listed as deceased. The adoption was closed, record sealed. He slid his locket closer to hers. 20 years ago, Thomas and Elizabeth Blackwood died in what was ruled an accident. Their 4-year-old son survived. Their infant daughter was presumed drowned, body never recovered. Zara stood abruptly, stepping back from the counter. "You think I'm her?" "Your sister?" "Based on matching jewelry. The lockets belonged to our mother," Alexander continued gently. "She always wore two, one with my picture, one with yours. The night of the accident, she separated them, giving me one half of the photograph." "This proves nothing," Zara insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. "Lockets can be duplicated. Photos can be manipulated." "You're right." Alexander kept his tone measured despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "Which is why I've ordered DNA testing, if you consent. The results would be conclusive." Zara paced the kitchen, locket clutched in her fist. "This is absurd. My entire life, upended twice in 24 hours? First my stepmother sells me to a stranger. Now that stranger claims to be my long-lost brother. Understand how overwhelming this must feel." "No, you don't." Her voice rose, years of suppressed emotion finally breaking through. My father, Dr. Mills, was the only person who ever truly cared about me. He wanted to find my birth family, but he died before we could. Now you appear with a convenient story and matching locket, right when I'm most vulnerable. Alexander remained still, allowing her justified suspicion. Dr. Mills made multiple requests to access your original birth records. Each was denied by Bright Futures, then by state authorities after the agency closed. He filed formal complaints about these denials 3 months before his death. This new information visibly impacted Zara. How could you possibly know that? Because I've spent 20 years investigating adoption fraud, building technology to find missing children, and searching specifically for a baby girl taken the night my parents died. Alexander stood slowly. I never expected to find you by chance in an alley. I never anticipated your stepmother would literally sell you to me. The mathematical probability of such coincidence is virtually zero. Zara's eyes filled with tears she refused to shed. What do you want from me? Nothing you're unwilling to give. A DNA test, if you're comfortable. Time to consider possibilities. The space to make your own decisions. He moved toward the elevator, recognizing her need for distance. Whatever you choose, your future is secure. My team will ensure your scholarship remains valid, your housing arranged, your legal status protected. You owe me nothing, Zara. As the elevator doors opened, Zara's voice stopped him. If the test is positive, if I am your sister, what then? Alexander turned, allowing genuine emotion to show for the first time. Then a promise I made to our mother 20 years ago will finally be fulfilled. But that's for tomorrow. Today, just rest. As the doors closed between them, both clutched identical lockets containing halves of a family torn apart. Pieces that might, against all odds, finally reconnect. The DNA results arrived at 6:17 a.m., 3 days after their first meeting. Alexander read the report twice, confirmation of what his heart had already accepted. 99.98% probability of full sibling relationship. Science had verified what fate had orchestrated. The girl in the turquoise dress was Elizabeth Blackwood's daughter, his sister, the missing piece of his fractured family. He sat motionless in his office, watching dawn light transform the skyline. Emotions too complex for simple categorization washing through him. 20 years of searching, building resources, following false leads, culminating in a chance encounter that defied rational explanation. His phone chimed with a message from Dr. Chun. She's awake. Asking for you. During the waiting period, Zara had remained at Haven 6, processing her stepmother's betrayal while cautiously exploring her potential connection to Alexander. They'd spoken daily but briefly, neither wanting to build expectations on unconfirmed foundations. When Alexander arrived at the penthouse, Zara sat at the kitchen island, hair pulled back, expression composed but expectant. 2 coffee mugs waited. She'd anticipated his arrival. "Good morning," she said, studying his face. "I assume you have the results?" Alexander nodded, placing the sealed envelope between them. "I haven't shared this with anyone. The decision to open it belongs to you." Zara took the envelope, fingers tracing its edges. "Before I open this, I need you to understand something. Finding a biological family doesn't automatically create relationships. DNA doesn't instantly generate trust or belonging. I agree completely. If this confirms we're siblings, I'm not instantly becoming the Blackwood heiress or whatever the media might expect. I need space to figure out who I am beyond either Mills or Blackwood." Alexander nodded. "Your identity belongs to you alone. No expectations or obligations come attached to these results." With deliberate movements, Zara opened the envelope and read the contents. Her expression remained carefully neutral, though her knuckles whitened around the paper's edge. 99.98%, she finally said, voice barely above a whisper. "We're siblings." "Yes." She placed the results down carefully. "I have questions. I'll answer everything I can. Our parents, what were they like? The real story, not the public version." Alexander's expression softened with memory. "Our father was brilliant but gentle. He built technologies to help people, not just profit from them. He played piano terribly, but enthusiastically. Our mother was fierce, principled, and funny. She could negotiate million-dollar contracts, then spend hours in the garden with her hands in the dirt. He hesitated before continuing. They founded Blackwood Technologies to develop facial recognition software specifically to find missing children. Their work threatened powerful people involved in illegal adoptions. That's why they were targeted. You believe they were murdered? I know they were. The accident investigation was deliberately mishandled. Witnesses reported another vehicle forcing them off the bridge. That vehicle was never found. Zara absorbed this, gazed distant. And me? What happened to me that night? You were 6 months old. Our mother had taken you to a pediatrician appointment earlier that day. The office was later connected to Bright Futures Adoptions. My theory is you were taken during that visit, replaced with another baby who died in the accident. Our parents discovered the switch and were silenced before they could expose the operation.
That's why you were investigating Cornerstone. You followed connections from Bright Futures. Alexander nodded. Several key personnel transferred between organizations, including Eleanor Rhodes. When Cornerstone opened 5 years ago, I began monitoring their operations, documenting patterns consistent with trafficking. Zara stood, moving to the window. The night Veronica sold me. Was it pure coincidence? Mathematical impossibility is more accurate. The universe aligned in ways I can't explain. Call it fate or cosmic justice. Somehow, you were literally delivered to the one person who'd been searching for you your entire life. Silence stretched between them, heavy with implications. When Zara finally spoke, her voice carried new resolve. What happens to Cornerstone now? To Rhodes and the others? My legal team delivered evidence to federal authorities yesterday. The organization is being dismantled as we speak. Rhodes was arrested this morning. Zara turned, expression hardening. And the people who killed our parents? The ones who stole me. For the first time, Alexander saw a reflection of himself in her eyes. The same determination, the same hunger for justice. That investigation continues, he answered carefully. Some players remain unidentified. I want to help, Zara stated firmly. Not as a victim or lost heiress, but as an active participant. This is my story too. Alexander recognized the moment for what it was. Not complete healing or instant family bonding, but the first step towards something authentic. A connection forming on their own terms. Where would you like to begin? He asked. With the truth. All of it, no matter how difficult. As morning light filled the room, two people connected by blood, separated by circumstance, divided by experience, took their first steps toward becoming family. Bound not just by DNA, but by shared purpose and the promise of justice long delayed. The headline exploded across news outlets worldwide. Blackwood heir discovered. Billionaire rescues trafficked sister. Despite Alexander's security measures, someone had leaked the DNA results, transforming their private reconnection into public spectacle. Alexander's phone rang continuously. Board members demanding explanations, shareholders concerned about company stability, reporters seeking exclusives. His carefully constructed world now faced scrutiny from angles he hadn't anticipated. How bad? He asked his communications director during an emergency conference call. Mixed, she replied. Markets initially reacted negatively, 9% drop at opening. But public sentiment is overwhelmingly positive. The long-lost siblings' reunited story is generating immense goodwill. Celebrity supporters are already reaching out. Focus on privacy protocols. Who leaked the information? Unknown. We've narrowed possibilities to medical staff who processed the DNA samples. Investigation continues. Alexander ended the call, turning to find Zara standing in his office doorway, expression unreadable. 3 weeks had passed since their confirmation as siblings. Weeks spent in carefully measured interactions, professional counseling, and gradual trust building. I told you this would happen, she said quietly. The moment we confirmed our relationship, I became a commodity again. The Blackwood heir, the rescued trafficking victim, the lost princess. Different buyers, same objectification. Alexander gestured to a chair. I'm sorry. The leak wasn't anticipated, but predictable. Zara remained standing. Your board is panicking about succession planning being disrupted. Your shareholders worry I'll claim half the company. Gossip sites are already speculating about my worthiness to carry the Blackwood name. Her perception surprised him. You've been monitoring the situation. I've spent my life assessing threats. This is just a different battlefield. She finally sat, posture perfect, a defense mechanism he recognized from his own corporate armor. We need to address this strategically. This affects both of us. I won't be passive while others control my narrative again. Alexander studied his sister, still cautious around him, still maintaining emotional distance, but increasingly showing the strategic mind they apparently shared. What do you suggest? Limited, controlled exposure. One interview, carefully selected journalist, precise messaging. Establish boundaries firmly. Make it clear I'm not seeking Blackwood assets or position. You're entitled to both. Zara's expression hardened. I don't want charity or inheritance. I earned my scholarship through academic excellence. I'll build my own path. It's not charity if it's your birthright. My birthright was stolen 20 years ago, so it was my choice. I won't have choices made for me again. Not by Veronica, not by the media, not even by you. The fierce independence in her voice resonated with Alexander's own nature. Different circumstances, same core strength. We present a united front, he conceded. Your terms, your boundaries respected. But there's something else you should know. He hesitated, weighing responsibilities against protection. The publicity has flushed out reactions from unexpected quarters. He turned his monitor, showing security footage of cornerstone adoptions following the news break. Eleanor Rhodes, released on bail pending trial, engaged in heated conversation with an unidentified man in an expensive suit. Body language analysis suggested fear, deference. Who is he? Zara asked. Unknown. Facial recognition found no matches in public databases. But his reaction to the news about you was extreme. He's connected to what happened to our parents. Possibly. My security team is tracking him, but he's practiced at avoiding surveillance. Zara leaned forward, studying the grainy image. He looks familiar somehow. You've seen him before? Not directly. Maybe in photographs at Cornerstone. She frowned. There was a wall of donors in Rhodes' office. Major contributors to their international placement program. Alexander made notes. We'll obtain those photographs. If he's publicly associated with Cornerstone, that creates an investigative opening. A notification appeared on his screen. Incoming call from Uncle Raymond, the man who'd raised him after his parents' death. I should take this, Alexander said. My uncle has been trying to reach you. He helped raise me after the accident. Zara stood abruptly. Not yet. I'm not ready for more family connections while still processing this one. As she turned to leave, Alexander called after her. The interview, who would you trust to tell our story correctly? Zara paused at the doorway. No one, but we'll choose someone anyway and control what we can. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. That's what Blackwoods do, isn't it? Control the uncontrollable. The observation, insightful and slightly barbed, struck Alexander with unexpected force. Despite everything, fragments of shared understanding were forming between them. Small bridges across 20 years of separation. Zara, he said as she reached the threshold. For what it's worth, our mother would be proud of who you've become. She didn't respond immediately, hand resting on the doorframe. I hope someday I'll know enough about her to believe that. Without looking back, she added, choose the journalist. I'll review your selection tomorrow. As she departed, Alexander returned to the security footage, studying the unidentified man who'd reacted so strongly to Zara's discovery. The stranger's obvious alarm suggested Alexander's family reunion had disturbed powerful forces long accustomed to operating in darkness. The walls were closing in, not just on Alexander and Zara, as media pressure mounted, but on those who had orchestrated the original tragedy. After 20 years, accountability approached like an incoming tide, impossible to stop and potentially devastating to those who had believed their secrets permanently buried. The Blackwood Technologies headquarters occupied 30 floors of gleaming steel and glass in Midtown Manhattan. Employees whispered as Alexander escorted Zara through the executive level, her presence confirming rumors that had circulated since the news broke. "You don't need to do this," Alexander reminded her quietly. "The board meeting can wait." Zara straightened her jacket, borrowed from Alexander's personal shopper but selected by her, navy blue and professionally tailored. "Your board thinks I'm coming to claim my piece of the company. Better to address it directly than let speculation continue." The boardroom fell silent as they entered. 12 executives, average age 62, average net worth 9 figures, collectively controlling a technology empire valued at $78 billion. They rose with practiced courtesy, eyes calculating as they assessed the young woman who had materialized from nowhere into their carefully balanced power structure. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alexander began, "I'd like to introduce my sister, Zara." She scanned the room with measured confidence. "Thank you for accommodating this unexpected meeting. I understand my existence raises questions about company succession and stability." Walter Kingsley, longest-serving board member and friend of Alexander's father, spoke first. "Ms. Blackwood." "Mills," she corrected firmly. "I remain Zara Mills until I decide otherwise." Kingsley adjusted seamlessly. "MS. Mills, your brother has led this company with exceptional vision. Naturally, we're concerned about any potential disruption, which is why I'm here." Zara took the seat Alexander held for her. "Let me be perfectly clear. I have no intention of claiming ownership stakes in Blackwood Technologies at this time. My immediate plans involve completing my education at NYU, where I've earned a full academic scholarship." Relief visibly rippled around the table, though several members maintained skeptical expressions. "A commendable position," noted Diane Levinson, CFO. "However, legally speaking, you're entitled to significant holdings as Thomas Blackwood's daughter." "I'm aware of my legal rights," Zara replied evenly. "I'm also aware that decisions made in haste rarely serve anyone well. My focus currently remains on adapting to extraordinary life changes and continuing my education." Alexander observed with carefully concealed pride how effectively she managed the room, neither intimidated by power nor grasping for it. The same natural authority their mother had possessed. "One stipulation," Zara continued. "The Blackwood Foundation for Missing Children. I would like involvement there, specifically focusing on adoption fraud and trafficking prevention." Several board members exchanged glances. The foundation, while publicly celebrated, had always been viewed as Alexander's personal project, expensive but tolerated for its positive publicity. "The foundation operates independently from corporate governance," Alexander explained. "Your involvement would be welcome and appropriate." The remainder of the meeting proceeded smoothly, concerns addressed, temporary arrangements formalized. As they departed, Kingsley approached them privately. "You look remarkably like your mother," he told Zara, voice softening with memory. "She would be overjoyed to see you both together." "You knew her well?" Zara asked, her composed facade momentarily yielding to genuine curiosity. "I was the best man at your parents' wedding. Your father was my closest friend." Kingsley hesitated. The official story about their deaths never sat right with me. Thomas would never have embezzled funds or fled authorities. He was building evidence against corruption when the accident happened. Alexander tensed. "You never shared these doubts with me. Your uncle Raymond insisted I keep my suspicions private for your safety." Kingsley glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. With Zara's reappearance, certain powerful people will grow nervous. Watch yourselves carefully. The past isn't finished with your family yet. As they rode the elevator downward, Zara broke their thoughtful silence. "He's afraid." "Yes," Alexander agreed. "And Walter Kingsley isn't a man who frightens easily." "More pieces connecting," Zara murmured. "My father, Dr. Mills, died suddenly 3 years ago. Heart attack, supposedly. But he'd been asking questions about my adoption, demanding records for bright futures." The implication hung between them as they reached the lobby. Security personnel flanked them discreetly as they exited the building. where photographers had gathered despite no public announcement of their visit. "Ready for this?" Alexander asked as camera flashes began. Zara lifted her chin slightly. "I've spent my life being invisible. Now I need to be seen, but on my terms, not theirs." Together, they walked forward into the waiting storm of attention. Two people connected by blood and separated by circumstance, now united by purpose, reclaiming not just a shared legacy, but the truth that had been buried alongside it for 20 years. "Tell me about the lockets," Zara requested, turning the silver oval in her hands as afternoon light played across its surface. 6 weeks had passed since the DNA confirmation. Weeks of cautious conversations, shared meals, and gradual territory mapping between two people learning to be siblings. They sat in Alexander's personal library, surrounded by first editions and family photographs recently brought out of storage. Outside, autumn painted Central Park in fiery colors visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. Alexander selected his words carefully, recognizing the significance of Zara's question. She rarely initiated conversations about their parents. "Mom always wore them, one with my picture, one with yours. Dad gave them to her when each of us was born." He smiled faintly at the memory. She called them her heart pieces because she carried her children close to her heart that way. Zara traced the engraved pattern along the edge. The night of the accident, she knew something was wrong. They both did. Dad had discovered financial discrepancies in adoption records, evidence of babies being sold to wealthy families. Mom noticed her pediatrician had switched her regular nurse during her checkup that day. Alexander paused, memory sharpening. They were packing to leave town when headlights appeared in our driveway. Mom grabbed me from bed, pressed the locket into my hand, and told me to find you if anything happened to them, that you were alive but taken. How could she know? Mother's intuition? Or perhaps she noticed subtle differences only a parent would recognize. The investigation concluded you died in the river, but no body was ever recovered. Zara closed the locket with a soft click. "Dr. Mills, my father, he told me I was chosen specially, that my adoption was meant to be. By all accounts, he was a good man who loved you deeply. He was, which makes it even more cruel that the foundation of our relationship began with a crime." Her voice remained steady though her knuckles whitened around the locket. "Someone stole me from our parents, falsified records, then sold me to him without his knowledge." Alexander moved to the window, giving her space. "The question that remains is why? Why target our family specifically?" "Power," Zara suggested. "Control. Money. The usual motives. Perhaps. But something feels personal about it. The thoroughness of the cover-up, the specific targeting of you rather than me." A notification chimed on Alexander's phone, a message from his investigative team. He read it quickly, expression darkening. "What is it?" Zara asked. "The unidentified man from the Cornerstone security footage. Facial recognition found a partial match in a private database. Lawrence Cannon, managing partner at Meridian Global Investments." Why is that significant? Meridian attempted a hostile takeover of Blackwood Technologies 8 years ago. When that failed, they pursued aggressive competition against every product we developed. Alexander's jaw tightened. Their founder, Victor Meridian, was my father's former business partner before a falling out 25 years ago. Zara processed this new information. "You think this goes back that far? A business rivalry? It's worth investigating." Victor Meridian died last year, but his influence remains through the company structure. The room fell silent as both considered implications. Eventually, Zara stood and moved to a chess set positioned near the fireplace, an antique board with hand-carved pieces. "Did you play?" she asked, touching a knight. "Dad taught me. He said chess builds strategic thinking." Zara arranged the pieces with practiced movements. "Dr. Mills taught me too. Said it would help me anticipate others' motivations." Alexander joined her at the board. "White or black?" "Black," she decided. "I prefer responding to aggression rather than initiating it." As they settled into their game, Alexander observed how Zara's playing style revealed aspects of her personality. Cautious opening moves, thoughtful middle game, decisive endgame execution. Neither spoke much, Yet something fundamental was being communicated through their strategic choices. "Check," Zara announced eventually. Alexander studied the board with newfound respect. "Well played." "My father," she began, then hesitated. Dr. Mills used to say chess reveals character. Aggressive players expose vulnerabilities in their haste. Patient players often miss opportunities while waiting for perfect conditions. "And what does my play reveal?" Zara considered him thoughtfully. "You protect certain pieces at all costs, your principles. You sacrifice others readily, your comfort, your public image. You plan several moves ahead, but adapt quickly when surprised." The assessment was remarkably accurate. "And your style?" "I appear defensive, but watch for precisely timed counterattacks." A smile ghosted across her face. "I learned young that appearing weak while being strong has advantages." As Alexander contemplated his next move, he realized they had found a language that bridged their separation, strategy, analysis, mutual respect for intellect. Not the emotional shorthand shared by siblings raised together, but something uniquely theirs. "Your move," Zara prompted. Indeed, it was in multiple dimensions beyond the chessboard. As autumn light warmed the room, two people who had been strangers 6 weeks earlier carefully navigated the complex terrain between blood connection and genuine relationship, each move bringing them incrementally closer to understanding. The anonymous package arrived at Haven 6 with no return address, bypassing Alexander's normally impenetrable security protocols. Inside, a thumb drive, a newspaper clipping about Thomas and Elizabeth Blackwood's accident from 20 years ago, and a handwritten note reading simply, "She wasn't the only one." Alexander's security team spent 48 hours scanning the drive for malware before clearing it for viewing. Now, in his secure office, he and Zara watched as its contents loaded onto an isolated system. "Prepared for anything?" he asked quietly. Zara nodded, though her tense posture betrayed apprehension. 2 months into their reconnection, they had developed a tentative rhythm, meeting 3 times weekly, sharing meals, exchanging carefully curated information about their separate lives, gradually building bridges across 20 years of absence. The screen flickered to life, revealing a folder labeled Bright Futures Alumni. Inside, photographs of children, ages ranging from infants to teenagers, each with accompanying documentation. Birth certificates, adoption records, medical files, all demonstrating systematic discrepancies. "These are all falsified adoptions," Alexander murmured, scanning through files. "Dozens of them, spanning nearly 3 decades. Zara leaned closer. "Look at the placement dates, clusters every few years. Almost like inventory clearance," Alexander finished grimly. When investigations got too close, they'd move children quickly to eliminate evidence. They continued examining records until Zara suddenly froze, pointing to a particular file. "This child, the adoption date matches mine. Same agency, same falsified documentation pattern." The photograph showed a baby girl approximately 6 months old, the same age Zara had been during the accident. The adopting parents, Gregory and Cynthia Westfield, Boston-based neurosurgeon and philanthropy director. "There's an address here," Alexander noted. "Current as of 5 years ago." "We need to contact them," Zara said immediately. "Carefully. If these records are accurate, their daughter is a victim like you. Possibly another child separated from her biological family." Zara's expression hardened with resolve, which is exactly why they deserve to know. "Dr. Mills died, never learning the truth about my adoption. I wouldn't wish that ignorance on anyone." Before Alexander could respond, his secure line rang. Uncle Raymond, the man who had raised him after his parents' death. Alexander hesitated before answering on speakerphone. "Alexander," Raymond's voice sounded strained. "Is Zara with you?" "I'm here," she confirmed, exchanging glances with Alexander. Though they'd spoken by phone, she had repeatedly postponed meeting Raymond in person, still establishing boundaries around her expanding family connections. "You need to increase security immediately," Raymond urged. "Lawrence Canton was found dead in his apartment this morning." Alexander straightened. The Meridian executive? How? Apparent suicide? Those circumstances appear questionable. Police discovered documents connecting him to Cornerstone Adoptions. News will break within hours. Zara's gaze locked with Alexander's. Our investigation triggered this. Someone's eliminating loose ends, Alexander agreed. Raymond, what aren't you telling us? A heavy pause preceded Raymond's response. Victor Meridian's son has returned from overseas. Julian Meridian has taken control of his father's company and is conducting internal reviews of all operations. Julian Meridian, Alexander repeated, the name triggering distant memory fragments. Dad's godson. Yes, your father mentored him before the partnership dissolved. Julian was devastated by the rift. He idolized Thomas. After ending the call, Alexander turned to find Zara already typing on her laptop, searching public records. Julian Meridian, she read aloud. 38, Harvard Business, Oxford Law. Disappeared from public view following his mother's death 15 years ago. Extensive overseas business operations primarily in Southeast Asia and Eastern Europe. Regions known for trafficking networks, Alexander noted. Coincidence? Increasingly unlikely. They returned to examining the anonymous files, tension elevating as patterns emerged. Each falsified adoption involved wealthy, influential families. Each biological family had experienced convenient accidents, unexpected deaths, or criminal charges shortly before losing their children. This isn't just adoption fraud, Zara concluded, voice tight with controlled anger. It's systematic destruction of families followed by child trafficking disguised as legitimate adoption. Alexander nodded grimly. The question becomes, who orchestrated this across decades? Who benefits from destroying families, selling children, and maintaining absolute secrecy? And why send us this evidence now? Zara added, someone inside the organization is breaking ranks. As if responding to her question, a final file appeared on screen, a video dated the previous day. They exchanged apprehensive glances before Alexander clicked play. Eleanor Rhodes appeared, makeup-free, exhausted, clearly recording in secret. If you're viewing this, I'm likely already dead, she began bluntly. The organization I've served for 30 years doesn't permit resignation. After news broke about the Blackwood reunion, containment protocols activated. Lawrence was the first elimination. I'll be next. She leaned closer to the camera. The children were never just commodities. They were weapons, leverage against powerful families, insurance policies, living blackmail. Your father discovered this, Alexander. Your mother identified which children had been switched. They died for that knowledge. Rhodes glanced anxiously over her shoulder before continuing. Julian Meridian controls everything. Has for 15 years since orchestrating his father's removal. He maintains his public charitable image while running the most sophisticated trafficking network in the Western Hemisphere. The video ended abruptly with Rhodes looking alarmed at something off camera. Silence enveloped the room as Alexander and Zara absorbed this revelation. The enemy hidden for 20 years suddenly had a name, a face, a motive, and apparently nothing left to lose. He'll come after us next, Zara said quietly. Alexander nodded. But this time we'll be ready. Camera lights blazed across the grand ballroom of the Blackwood Foundation's annual gala. 500 guests in formal attire, business leaders, politicians, celebrities, mingled beneath crystal chandeliers, their combined net worth approaching $1 trillion. The event had always attracted power, but this year's attendance had shattered records. Everyone wanted glimpses of the reunited Blackwood siblings. Alexander adjusted his cufflinks, platinum with sapphire insets, his father's favorites, while observing security positions throughout the room. 3 months of meticulous planning had led to this moment. Every detail calculated, every contingency mapped, every risk assessed. Nervous? Raymond asked, joining him at the periphery. Cautious, Alexander corrected. Julian Meridian confirmed his attendance. First public appearance in America in 8 years. Raymond's expression tightened. I still believe this is unnecessarily dangerous. You're practically inviting confrontation. Sometimes the best trap is the obvious one. Their conversation paused as attention shifted to the entrance. Zara appeared, poised and elegant in a floor-length gown, the exact shade of turquoise she'd worn the night Alexander found her. No coincidence. Every element of her appearance had been carefully chosen to evoke recognition, to silently communicate resilience. The room momentarily hushed before erupting in applause. Cameras flashed as she navigated the crowd with practiced grace, acknowledging greetings while moving steadily toward Alexander. "Our honored guest has arrived," she murmured when she reached him, nodding subtly toward a distinguished man entering the ballroom. Julian Meridian moved with practiced charisma, his tailored tuxedo impeccable, silver hair lending distinguished gravity to youthful features. He paused frequently to greet admirers, each interaction perfectly calibrated. The philanthropist returned from abroad, the humble business leader, the grieving son honoring his father's legacy. "He's good," Zara observed, every gesture calculated for maximum effect. "He learned from experts," Raymond commented darkly. "Your father mentored him personally before the betrayal." As Julian approached their position, Alexander stepped forward with practiced warmth. "Julian, welcome back to New York." "Alexander," Julian clasped his hand firmly. "Congratulations on your foundation's remarkable growth. Your parents will be proud." No tension in his voice, no discomfort in his expression. Only perfect social poise as he turned to Zara with a warm smile. "And the miraculous Ms. Mills. Your story has inspired millions. One extraordinary homecoming." Zara accepted his extended hand with gracious composure. "Thank you for supporting our cause tonight, Mr. Meridian. Please, Julian, your brother and I were practically family once." Only Alexander noticed the infinitesimal tightening around Zara's eyes at this statement. They had prepared extensively for this encounter. Rehearsed responses, practiced reactions, anticipated provocations. "Indeed we were," Alexander agreed smoothly. "Your father and mine built remarkable things together before their paths diverged." Julian's smile remained unchanged, though something flickered briefly in his eyes. "Ancient history. Tonight is about moving forward, yes? Your announcement has everyone quite intrigued." Before Alexander could respond, the foundation director approached the microphone, requesting guests take their seats for the evening's program. "We mustn't keep your audience waiting," Julian said. "Perhaps we can continue our conversation later?" As he moved away, Raymond leaned closer to Alexander. "He shows no concern whatsoever. Either he doesn't realize what we know, or he's absolutely certain we can prove nothing," Alexander finished. The program proceeded according to schedule: acknowledgments, awards, fundraising appeals. Throughout, Alexander monitored Julian, noting how he charmed surrounding guests while maintaining perfect sight lines to both Blackwood siblings. Finally, the moment arrived. Alexander approached the podium amid enthusiastic applause. 20 years ago, he began, voice measured and clear, "A tragedy separated our family. Tonight represents not just a personal reunion, but a renewed commitment to protecting all families from similar heartbreak." Cameras flashed continuously as he continued, outlining the foundation's expanded mission addressing adoption, fraud, and trafficking. When he introduced Zara, the audience rose in standing ovation. She joined him at the podium, composed and focused. "My journey home was possible because one person refused to stop searching," she stated simply. "Most missing children aren't so fortunate. Most families lack resources to continue seeking answers across decades." As planned, she announced the Foundation's new investigation division, a team of former law enforcement, intelligence officers, and technology experts dedicated to resolving cold cases involving missing children. "Tonight," she concluded, "we launch with 50 active investigations spanning 30 years. Some involve falsified adoptions where neither child nor adoptive parents realized the criminal nature of their arrangement." Throughout the ballroom, security teams monitored reactions. Most guests displayed expected emotions: admiration, sympathy, support. Julia Meridian maintained perfect composure, applauding appropriately while typing discreetly on his phone. Our first resolved case involves the Westfield family of Boston, Alexander continued, activating the presentation screen behind him. Their daughter, Emily, adopted 20 years ago through Bright Futures Agency, recently discovered her biological parents were told she died at birth. DNA testing confirmed her actual identity as Catherine Shun, daughter of researchers whose work threatened powerful interests. Photographs appeared on screen. A family reunited, their emotional meeting captured in powerful images. Throughout the ballroom, guests wiped away tears. This represents just the beginning, Alexander continued. Tonight, we publicly commit to investigating every adoption process through agencies connected to Bright Futures, Cornerstone, and Meridian Global Investments Charitable Foundation. For the first time, Julian's expression flickered momentarily before resetting to polite interest. Around the room, several guests shifted uncomfortably, checking phones, exchanging glances. We invite anyone with information about these organizations to come forward, Zara added. Complete confidentiality guaranteed. Because every child deserves truth. Every family deserves answers. As applause thundered through the ballroom, Alexander met Julian's gaze directly across the crowd. A silent message passed between them. Acknowledgement that battle lines had been drawn publicly, irrevocably. The trap was set. The declaration made. 20 years of shadow operations had been dragged into blinding light. Now they would discover how dangerous a cornered predator could truly become. Dawn painted the Westchester Bridge in golden light as Alexander and Zara stood at the exact spot where their parents' car had broken through the guardrail 20 years earlier. Below, the river flowed calm and indifferent, having long since erased all evidence of the tragedy that had separated them. I expected to feel something more profound, Zara admitted, hands resting on the replaced railing. Anger, grief, connection. Instead, it just feels empty, Alexander finished. Like watching a movie about strangers. 3 days had passed since the Foundation Gala, days of accelerating consequences. Eleanor Rhodes had been found dead in her cell, apparent suicide despite 24-hour monitoring. Digital attacks had bombarded Blackwood Technology systems. Security around both siblings had doubled following credible threats. Most significantly, Julian Meridian had vanished immediately after the event, his private jet filing flight plans for Geneva but landing in Jakarta instead. International law enforcement agencies now monitored all known Meridian properties globally. We've unleashed something we can't control, Zara observed, watching early morning mist rise from the water. 50 families discovering their adoptions began with crimes. Hundreds of employees learning their organizations facilitated trafficking. The ripples will continue for decades. Alexander nodded. Are you having second thoughts? No. Truth matters, however painful. She turned to face him directly. But I wonder if our parents would have chosen this path, knowing the consequences. They already did, Alexander replied. They died because they refused to remain silent about what they discovered. They stood quietly, 5 months into their improbable reunion. No longer strangers, yet still learning the complex language of siblinghood. Their relationship had developed its own rhythm. Direct communication, shared purpose, mutual respect, and gradual trust building. Alexander's phone vibrated with an incoming call from his security chief. He answered, expression intensifying as he listened. When, he asked, how reliable is the source? Understood. Maximum security protocol until confirmation. He ended the call, turning to Zara with uncharacteristic urgency. Julian Meridian was just found in Singapore. Dead. Apparent assassination with professional characteristics. Someone silenced him before he could implicate others. Zara concluded immediately. Possibly. Or eliminating competition. His death creates a power vacuum in multiple organizations. The implications hung between them as a helicopter approached, bringing Raymond to their location as planned. The original meeting purpose, a private memorial for their parents, now overshadowed by breaking developments. As Raymond exited the helicopter, Zara studied him with new awareness. The man who had raised Alexander, protected the family fortune, maintained the search for her across decades, yet had somehow never discovered the connections they had uncovered in months. "The bridge still gives me nightmares," Raymond commented, joining them at the railing. "I identified their bodies, you know. Hardest day of my life." Alexander's phone chimed with another alert. "Julian's financial records have been located," he announced. His accounts received regular payments from 12 separate shell corporations across 20 years. "Blackmail payments," Zara suggested, "from families whose children were placed through his network." Raymond cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should postpone this discussion. Today was meant for remembrance, not investigation." Something in his tone caught Zara's attention. A subtle tension, almost imperceptible anxiety. "You knew Julian was involved," she stated quietly, pieces suddenly aligning in her mind. "You've known all along." Raymond's expression shifted minutely. "Suspicion isn't knowledge. I had concerns about Julian's influence, but nothing concrete. Yet you never investigated those concerns," Alexander observed, watching his uncle with new perspective. "Despite having resources to do so, I focused on raising you, protecting what remained of the family," Raymond replied defensively. Julian's activities seemed peripheral to that mission. Zara caught Alexander's eye, a silent communication passing between them. Without words, both recognized the subtle wrongness in Raymond's explanation, the careful framing that obscured rather than illuminated. "The helicopter pilot mentioned visibility problems developing," Alexander said casually. "Perhaps we should return to the city." Raymond nodded too quickly. "Wise precaution. This memorial can wait for clearer weather." As they walked toward the helicopter, Alexander positioned himself slightly behind Raymond, hand moving discreetly to his phone. Zara maintained casual conversation, asking about childhood memories, keeping Raymond's attention forward. Alexander typed rapidly. "Access Raymond's financial records immediately. Priority override. Full historical audit." The helicopter journey passed in strained conversation, Raymond growing increasingly uncomfortable as neither sibling mentioned Julian's death or the Foundation's investigations. By the time they landed at Alexander's building, the tension had become palpable. In the penthouse, Raymond moved directly to the bar. "This morning calls for something stronger than coffee, I think." Before he could pour, Alexander's security chief entered, expression grave, tablet in hand. "Sir, you asked for these records urgently." Raymond froze, glass halfway to his lips. "What records?" Alexander accepted the tablet, scanning its contents while addressing his uncle. "Did you know the trust fund you established for me received regular contributions from Meridian global subsidiaries? Curious financial arrangement." "Business partnerships continue despite personal disagreements," Raymond replied smoothly. "Victor maintained certain investments out of respect for your father." "Victor died 15 years ago," Zara noted. "The payments continued monthly since then. Most recent transfer 3 days ago." Color drained from Raymond's face. "You've misinterpreted standard business transactions." "Standard business typically doesn't route payments through 7 different countries," Alexander countered, "or coincide precisely with adoption dates from Bright Futures records." Raymond set down his glass carefully. "You've been investigating me." "No," Zara corrected. "We've been investigating everyone connected to our parents' deaths and my disappearance. Your name simply appeared in unexpected places. 20 years of questions crystallized into a single moment of clarity. The trusted guardian, the faithful protector, the man who had shaped Alexander's life after tragedy, now revealed as something entirely different. You were the inside connection," Alexander stated, voice dangerously quiet. "The one who provided access to our family. The one who ensured my sister disappeared permanently. The one who helped frame our father for embezzlement." Raymond's posture changed subtly, resignation replacing pretense. "You understand nothing about that time, the pressures involved, the compromises necessary." "Then explain," Zara challenged. Help us understand how you justified betraying your own family. Raymond studied her face, then Alexander's, measuring his options with practiced calculation. Your father discovered something he couldn't handle responsibly. His moral crusade threatened powerful people who offered alternatives, compromises. He refused to listen to reason. So you helped murder him, Alexander concluded flatly. I helped create a controlled exit that should have protected everyone, Raymond corrected. The plan was never death, just discreditation. The accident was unexpected escalation. Zara stepped forward, voice steady despite the emotion beneath. And me? Was stealing an infant from her family also unexpected escalation? Raymond turned to her, expression almost pleading. You were placed with an excellent family. A surgeon, financial stability, every advantage. I monitored your progress throughout childhood, ensured your welfare was maintained. While collecting payments for my abduction, Zara finished. Compensation for services rendered, Raymond countered. The system worked. Families wanting children received them. Biological parents were removed from equations where necessary. Order maintained. Alexander activated his security system with a subtle gesture. Throughout the building, locks engaged, security personnel moved into position. Julian figured it out, didn't he? Alexander asked. He realized you were the actual mastermind, using him as the public face while you operated invisibly. Raymond's laugh held no humor. Julian was a useful puppet, ambitious, charismatic, perfect scapegoat if necessary. His elimination became inevitable once your foundation announced investigations. You had him killed, Zara stated. Self-preservation, Raymond shrugged. This organization extends beyond any individual. Remove one head, another emerges. The elevator doors opened, revealing federal agents with arrest warrants. Raymond observed them with resignation rather than surprise. You'll find nothing admissible, he told Alexander calmly. 20 years of careful precautions ensure that. As agents took Raymond into custody, Alexander and Zara stood side by side, watching the man who had shaped both their lives through presence and absence. He's right about evidence, Alexander acknowledged once they were alone. His operation maintained perfect deniability. Zara's expression remained resolute. Evidence isn't our only resource. 50 families discovering their histories, hundreds of employees questioning their organizations, thousands of records being examined by investigators worldwide. The truth doesn't require perfect legal evidence to emerge. Alexander nodded slowly. Not the ending I imagined when I found you 5 months ago. Not an ending at all, Zara corrected. Just another beginning. As morning light filled the penthouse, two individuals who had begun as strangers, divided by circumstance, connected by blood, united by purpose, stood at the threshold of a future neither could have imagined months earlier. Their journey from separation to reunion had exposed decades of deception, challenged powerful networks, and ultimately revealed that family could be both inherited and chosen, broken and rebuilt, lost and found. The circle, 20 years in completion, had finally closed. What opened before them now was entirely unwritten.